Hey everyone, welcome to Brews, Beards, and Shipwrecks. We are excited to have Q Unique on this show tonight. From his days with the Arsonist to his solo work, Q Unique has been a force in the underground hip hop scene, known for his dope rhymes, his raw energy. We're going to dive into his journey. We're going to ask him some questions about inspirations, challenges, thoughts on life, music, and everything in between.
Got a beard and it's looking something fierce. Having beers with one peers and talking rap careers. Reflecting on the years, connecting on the tears. Shipwreck faith ain't always as appears. I'm bringing you fresh music, I'm bringing fresh ideas. I'm bringing you the dudes in the indie music biz. Chilling after shows and talking about the pain with people who learned how to face it and be sane. Sipping on a brew, doing interviews. No topics off the table, but we focus on breakthroughs. So kick up your feet, we're gonna put it in check. You're listening to Brews, Beards, and Shipwrecks. 1, 2, a mic check, stone bounce, royal ruckus on the scene, just to announce. We got the brews, we got the beards, tasty interviews for your ears to hear. 1, 2, a mic check, stone bounce, royal ruckus on the scene, just to announce. We got the brews, we got the beards, tasty interviews for your ears to hear.
All right, and on today's episode, we have three people. I am Jamie Bennett, also known as Chun J from Royal Ruckus. With me, as always, is asleep at the wheel or frozen again. Well, we'll just get into it.
All good.
Are you there? All right. Well, while Nomadic figures out his stuff, welcome to the show. Feel free to introduce yourself.
What's up, y'all? This is Q Unique, also known as Q on the rock tip. And I'm ready to chop it up, man.
Yeah. Well, we were talking before I hit record, and you were saying you live in LA, but like you grew up in Brooklyn, right?
My whole life, born and raised in Brooklyn.
So I mean, it almost sounds silly to ask, but like, how did Brooklyn shape your approach to hip hop? I mean, let's just dive right in.
I think Brooklyn did more than that. I think it just shaped me just as a person, the way my perspective of the world, my opinion of things. And when it comes to hip hop, of course, I think just the history of let's just talk about MCs that come out of Brooklyn. You got Stetson Sonic, Big Daddy Kane, Special Ed, Jay-Z.
Right.
I mean, we got quite a history in Brooklyn. Gang Starr. I mean, they were transplants, one from Texas, one from Boston. But I think that Gang Starr encompassed the Brooklyn mentality, along with J. Rue, who was from Brooklyn. But
what wasn't MCA from Beastie Boys?
Yes, he also from Brooklyn.
That's a lot of people.
The Arsonists, my family, right. The Arsonists. Nonfiction. So the Brooklyn side of hip hop history is very special. It's beautiful. Going to school in Brooklyn. I mean, what's crazy is sometimes you just look how your life takes these twists and turns. And so the first person that I met that later on we'd be touring together and collaborate is Sabak. Me and Sabak grew up in the same neighborhood. So we went to high school together. And at that time, he was like a club promoter. And I was kind of like, I came from a broken home. So I would spend time with my grandmother in the Bronx. Although I was born in Brooklyn, there were times when my parents couldn't get it together. So I would have to stay with my grandmother. So when I came back to Brooklyn, that's when I met Sabak, and he was handing out flyers, and I would ask him to take a stack of flyers. I just felt cool handing out flyers. He wouldn't pay me or anything. It just felt cool to be able to, put people up on what was going down, like with this show and that show. And so that's like my earliest memory of just meeting someone that later on I'd have like a whole like career and in brotherhood with, because Nonfiction and Arsonists, we were like family and cousins. I mean, there's other groups to mention like Company Flow, sure. Juggernauts, Stayin, Yeshua, Godfather Don. The list goes on and on, man.
Yeah. What was this like? every scene is different, right? What's the Brooklyn scene like? Like, because people are from
Brooklyn,
right?
you know what's funny?
Around
That's a great question, man. Brooklyn at first, from the way I remember it, was the borough that you didn't want to come to the party because we were unruly and wild and chain snatchers, and you know, it was a wild crew that would come from Brooklyn. And from what I understand, like for instance, we had one of the most iconic hip hop clubs in history was the Union Square. I mean, KRS-One mentions it, Rakim mentions it. Right. It was like an iconic, but it was short lived. A lot of people don't know it was a short lived club. Yeah. And from what I understand, I was a little too young to go in. I would roll up and be out front, but they would never let me in. I was way too young. And, but from what I understood, Brooklyn ruined it for everybody. Oh. But at the same time, I feel like Brooklyn just had that vibe. Of course, it started in the Bronx, and Queens also has like this history of legend, you know, Nas and Mobb Deep and right. So on and so on. Yeah. But for me, I just feel special coming from Brooklyn, and especially for me. What's crazy about me is I'm biracial, so I'm Puerto Rican and Italian. So okay. The first part of my life, I was raised in an Italian neighborhood, and the neighborhood I came from was wise guy heavy, if you know what I mean. Sure. So I got to see what a lot of people saw in movies, I kind of like saw in real time. And then when I ended up going to my grandmother's house in the Bronx, that's when I started seeing the other side. Like I would see graffiti trains with scene pieces on them, PJ pieces on them. The elders in my family, some of them were members of Zulu already. So I would go to the Bronx River projects as a kid and just not really I didn't really understand what it was yet until I met Crazy Legs, but it was still special that I got like that chance to see it before anybody explained what was going on. I got to see all of these pieces and be in the room and just observe, you know?
Yeah.
So it's pretty special. Yeah.
Were you about to say something, Nomadic?
No, I was just saying that's dope. I mean, it's like I was listening to a Drink Champs episode with Smith and Wesson on.
There you go.
Nori and them were talking about kind of the difference between Brooklyn and Queens, you know? So it's, you know, I grew up in Oregon my whole life. So it's like, you know, it's a different scene out here. So it's like hearing about like those cats coming up in it and like what you're talking about. It's just like, you know, it's one of those things I was like, man, dude, if I had a chance, it would have been so dope to grow up in New York in like the 70s and the 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so, yeah, it's just cool to hear that, you know?
Yeah, it was a special place. It kind of felt like it felt like we were able to color outside the lines. And I think in the 90s, a few things just kind of like twisted it in a way where it kind of, this is just from my perspective. There's people that agree. I just feel like, and I hate to bring his name up because it's too fucking hot to mention, but it's like when Diddy came into the scene, I feel like there was a split.
Facts.
Just kind of like you either wanted to dance in a shiny suit and hold a bottle and throw money, or you just wanted to kind of like have your champion hoodie and your Timberlands and cipher up and pass the blunt and spit your hot verses. And so it was kind of like a weird dynamic had happened. And also when Mayor Giuliani kind of like got in office, he kind of like shut a lot of things down and kind of like twisted it. There was a lot of twisting and turning towards the 90s that kind of took away from what I remember from the golden era. For me, the golden era is 86 to 89 as far as what I saw, you know, from KRS, Rakim, Kane, Super Lover C, Casanova Rudd, Paul C. I mean, all of these Ultramagnetics, all of these guys, each one of them was one of a kind. And they had changed the dynamics of MCing so much that you have, to me, I consider that the golden era.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, that's for real. I'm also curious about like the creative dynamic that you had like within the Arsonists, you know, like like tell me a little bit about that and how it made you guys so unique, because you guys really just had like it's not just those guys that you're talking about from that era, like that's you too. You guys have
Thank you.
your own sound, you know.
It's kind of, what was special about the Arsonist is that it was never a spoken strategy. It's almost like, for instance, like when I saw like people like respectively, I say this respectively, when I saw people like Missy Elliott and others like put breakers in their videos or little graffiti here and there, I just felt like they were paying homage, but they were just, it was kind of calculated and really thought about. Whereas when we did it as the Arsonists, we were just carrying on a tradition. We never really like as a group, we never said, hey, we're gonna go on stage, we're gonna break, and we're gonna have graffiti backdrop. It was just we just did it because we just, I guess subconsciously, we just felt like that it was just the correct thing to do. And it's kind of strange in a way because we would have rehearsals as an MC group. So we would practice routines, choreograph routines to songs, and almost like taking what Cold Crush and Fantastic Five did, but kind of like giving it an upgrade where, we were in the 90s. So they had to be a little bit of a difference from what they were doing to what we were doing. Almost like, sure, we took from Cold Crush and Fantastic, but then we also took from Wu-Tang and leaders of the new school. So it's like that I think that's where the upgrade stems from, is like we knew where the foundation was, but then right before us were these two extraordinary groups, leaders of the new, Wu-Tang, and it just kind of helped with our thought process and our creative flow. And we also, the only thing we were really conscious about was coming from a rough area like Bushwick, Brooklyn, we knew that we didn't want to talk street shit immediately because we felt like everybody else was kind of like already informing the rest of the world how New York was doing as far as street life. So we approached it from a very hip hop perspective. Sure, we have moments like Venom and Seed where we go beyond the hip hop and we get more into consciousness. But for the most part, we knew that we wanted to take it from a hip hop perspective. And what was dope was this, and I mentioned him earlier, the Source magazine, if you guys remember it, they recognized us for it, and they have an editorial that came out in the magazine where they talk about how the dynamics of hip hop is so widespread, and this is how it's worded. It says on one side of the spectrum you have Puff Daddy, and on the other side you have the Arsonists. So we were already recognized as being the polar opposite of that. And for us, it was shocking that they even brought up our name like that, but we appreciate it because they saw it, they got it. They were like, Arsonist is that real shit, and Diddy is this real shit. And the reason why I say Diddy is this real shit, because I can't undermine Craig Mack or Shine or Biggie. Sure, Diddy has his situation, but we can never forget what came out of that. No matter how sad the ending is, it still was a part of it, so.
I was never a Diddy fan. I mean, some of those Bad Boy mixtapes that came out were dope, you know?
For real.
But I mean that's crazy too, because it's like, when you think about it, y'all both had dancing, but like y'all just kept the tradition.
Rocksteady, because I'm a Rocksteady crew member.
That's what I was gonna bring. That's why I had that 12, because like a lot of people's first introduction to like you and Arsonists and stuff is through the session. But that joint was actually the first time I heard y'all.
Oh, wow.
And I heard the session on it was a Beat Junkies mixtape.
That's dope. That's dope.
I was like, yo, dude. And so then I was just digging. Then a homie of mine had As the World Burns, and I was like, yo. And then I was just like, dude, just kept, what I'm saying? It's that whole era. I just missed that 12-inch era of Raucous and Land Speed and all those,
Yeah, it was a beautiful time. That's golden era part 2 for me, because being there, and like I mentioned, all of these groups from Natural Elements, Company Flow, Arsonist, Juggernauts, Sayin Yeshua. I mean, it was an incredible, like it was quick, but it was incredible. Like all the clubs we were like popping up in. We like I mentioned Union Square, but we had our headquarters. Like we would go to Wetlands and SOBs and Tramps and so on and so forth. So I remember how crowds of people would come out and watch all of our groups get on stage, and it just felt special. Like it's something that I'll never forget. It was just the right time, right place, and it was really awesome, man.
Well, I mean, even like on West Coast, you know, I mean, think about it, you got Hyro, you know,
Dilated, yep.
Planet Asia. I
Yep.
mean, Master Kurt, all of them. It's like when that, it's like it was such a beautiful time where it's like, dude, you would just walk into the record store and you'd pick something up off the strength of the label. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
sir. Yes, sir.
Like that's why I was like you're saying, Golden Era too. It's like the 12-inch era where it's like, dude, you know, there's cats who was just doing shows just based off of 12 inches without even an album. You know,
Arsonist, we booked our first tour was booked because we had let me make sure I'm saying this right. I believe we only had one or two 12 inches. One Bobito put out, one MC Search put out, and that's all we had. And they brought us into Europe based on the strength, not just of the songs, but of our stage reputation. We had developed an early reputation of being really good on stage. And the Roots had brought us out, and Public Enemy and all of that. And so, but prior to all of those guys, it was just our session and Venom and we were already on a plane to Europe. It was that instant. It was crazy.
Wow. Well, I'm curious what prompted, because I mean everything you're talking about from your history is, you know, amazing stuff. But
Thank
like
you.
at some point you transitioned into a solo career.
Yes.
Wondering like what caused that shift in your artistic focus to go out on your own.
That's a heavy question. I'm gonna be real with you. It was failure. It was our failure of not understanding what we had, and just being real with you. We failed to understand what the Arsonists had, what our relationship with our label was, because normally artists will get on and they complain about their labels. Oh, the label did this. In our case, Matador Records was perfect. They understood. They did the right thing. They pushed us in ways that I don't think any other label would have. I mean, they had us on MTV and they had us on stages. Like I mentioned, we done shows with Pavement and John Spencer's Blues Explosion. Aside from going out with the Roots and Public Enemy and Matador was beautiful. It was just us. We really didn't like. Had I had an opportunity to sit with somebody like RZA or somebody and be like, how were you able to keep your group together for a long period of time?
Right.
And get those notes and get that. I didn't have anybody, like none of us had anybody that could get in our ear and be like, hey guys, you need to slow down and focus on A, B, and C. I mean, I remember the label, the one thing that they were trying to get us to understand was staying on the road a lot. And I think because we were falling apart, we couldn't really follow what it was that they were trying to do, because internally we were kind of going crazy in a way, you know. Right. And it's sad. But that being said, I knew personally that I didn't want to stop my journey there. I didn't want like the Arsonist to end and then that was it. And thank God, Ill Bill just saw the potential in me. Ill Bill was the one that he knew that the Arsonist was coming to an end, because he and I worked at Fat Beats together, and you know, I would confide in him like, yo, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he turned to me one day. I guess he had gotten a distribution deal at the time, and he wanted to put out the first Q Unique solo album. He saw potential that I did not see. And the reason why my first album sounds so different from an Arsonist album is because of Ill Bill's influence and his input as to where I should go, because he knew me as his friend. He knew my life personally. And so he knew those stories that I told on Vengeance Is Mine about the setup and Father's Day and all of that. So it was his idea, he was like, you got to tell people your truth. I think people need to hear your truth because it's so fucking bizarre that you need to share it. And he was right, you know.
So that's one thing that interests me, and I'd love to hear more from you about this. Is like, you know, you're sharing real stories, right? So it's always interesting to me when an artist gets vulnerable enough to put their real biography into their songs. You know, obviously you might be tweaking some things for whatever reason, or maybe sometimes you're writing it so raw that you know that other people who experience that are going to know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. Take me into that, and like, you know, why do you want to open up like that?
This is a great question. So I want to premise it by starting with last year was the 20th anniversary of Vengeance Is Mine. And the reason why I'm starting with that is because I went back into that album and I fixed some things that had bothered me, and I re-released it as this massive package where it's the original songs, some bonus songs, and then all the instrumentals. And the reason why I went back to fix certain verses was because I can no longer co-sign some of the ignorance that I was spitting. So I adjusted it. But to what you're saying, the songs like The Setup, Father's Day, Diamond in the Rough, those songs never got touched because they like Setup is pure truth. There's nothing that I exaggerated on. It was my life from a child all the way to like high school. And I'm telling you about all of these insane twists and turns in my life. And I think why it became important to me for a few reasons. Number one, and it's dope that he's wearing the Stillwell shirt. I was always a grunge head. And I hate to use the word grunge because it kind of like puts this massive umbrella under these bands that none of them sound alike, but we use it anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, we're from that era. We know what you're talking about.
Right, exactly. So the reason why I bring up the grunge is because when you're a deep listener of those bands, the vibe you connect with Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, it's a very dramatic, dark, almost gray vibe because they came with their pain and put it on music. So I could relate to that because I come from that kind of pain. So when it was time to write Vengeance, I was drawing from the well of hip hop, but I was also drawing from the well of grunge and their truths, because they set an example. Lane and Chris and Kurt, they all set this example of how to put pain together beautifully for music. And so I followed that example and then shelled it in hip hop. And you know what? There was no fear in giving my truth. I felt like I don't even know if there was any intention other than just telling my truth. When it spun into listeners getting back to me and DMing me and writing me letters like this, The Setup means it's so much to me. I'm so happy you wrote a song like this. That's when it became more real for me. It was like, now it's no longer my song. Now this song serves a purpose. And so that's why I didn't touch, when I went back, that's why I didn't touch those songs, because to me, those songs are more important than me spitting a hot 16. Hot 16s is like, that's cool. That's great. Flexing skill is always great. But when you're connecting with someone through emotion and experience, it's like that is way more important to me than giving you the illest verses that I can think of.
Yeah.
So all of these things with Ill Bill acting like a Rick Rubin through the whole process is what enabled me to have this public exorcism, because that's what it was. That record, I always tell people, is a public exorcism. I'm fighting demons that no one knew that I had, and Vengeance Is Mine was my going to expose it and share it. And then it became something where people could relate, and it became something other than what I anticipated. So it's pretty important.
Well, I mean, it's like I've been going back through like listening to all your stuff, because I remember seeing it was like the ad in Elemental, which is like my favorite mag of all time. But for Vengeance Is Mine, you know, but it's funny because like going back through, like you talking about touching stuff up, because like on the intro you said something about Spotify, and I was like, wait a second, Spotify.
I did that because so what's happening with my career is because there was a crossroad that I had hit about 3-4 years ago where I wasn't sure what to do with Q Unique anymore. And it was because there was a moment, especially during the whole mixtape craze, where I felt like I was just going through the motions. I wasn't really paying the respective attention that I needed to my craft. I was just like, oh, mixtape, here's a verse, here's a verse, here's a verse. And so when I got to that crossroad, I had looked at my catalog and I was really disappointed in myself. I was like, what a fucking mess I made. And it was Fieldy from Korn that was like, because I had told him, I was like, yo, dude, like, I don't know about this Q Unique shit anymore, man. Like, this shit is like in a way that I'm not enjoying it because I made such a mess of it and I can't figure out where I'm at. And he gave me this speech where he was like, listen, what you do at Rock is cool. It's great. We love it. And we love to jam and all of that. But Q Unique is like, that's a legacy. Like he was like me with Korn, that's my legacy. Q Unique is part of your legacy. So you got to figure it out, dude. You can't stop that. Like too many people love you for that stuff. So whatever it is that's bothering you, figure it out and fix it. And so when he gave me that speech, I went over to Soul Spasm. I told him what was bothering me. We pulled down all the mixtapes. I handpicked some of the songs that kind of work for the mixtapes. I reproduced them, reapproached them, packaged them as the Legacy Series Volume 1, Volume 2, and had a whole like revival for who I was and a whole new rebranding. And then I started talking to this woman that works in the industry. Her name is Dove, and she helped me with YouTube. And that's why you see so many clips of me now talking about historical things, is because she guided me through this whole new process of, accompanying your music with content. And so now I'm in a place now where I look at my catalog and getting to what you said, the reason why I changed certain things, and especially in the resume, was because what started happening was once I started cleaning up my catalog, I started getting new listeners that never heard of me before. And so when I put the resume back together, I wanted the new listener to kind of like feel a little welcome now that they're catching up at a time. Because if I would have said tapes and vinyl, a lot of new listeners have been like, huh, what? So it's like, here, man, I'm on Spotify too. I'm here. So that's why I did that with that song specifically.
Well, so then did the song Look at the Mess I Made come out of that?
Mess I Made is that's a good one, because Mess I Made is actually connected to a song called Dead Roses on Between Heaven and Hell. My second album has a song called Between Heaven and Hell has a song called Dead Roses. Mess I Made and Dead Roses are related. They're about the same story. Mess I Made is the rock version of the story, and Dead Roses is the hip hop version, the more detailed version of the story that I'm referring to in Mess I Made. Just a bad relationship that I was in. And no matter how much I tried to help this girl, it just became more and more of a mess.
That's dope. That's like A side, B side.
Yeah, it was weird because another person had pointed out the two songs they had asked. And I was like, oh shit, I forgot that they are connected. It's just that I wrote them at different times, so I didn't think, but they are. They're related. They're both about the same. There's a few songs, like for instance, on the Stillwell side, there's a song called Could Have Sworn that came out on Supernatural Miracle. That song is related to 133rd Psalm that I just released on the Royal Blood album. It's interesting being this dual genre person. I get to kind of like take a story and tell it from different perspectives and different angles and different techniques. So rock with, like, for instance, I was just talking about Could Have Sworn, talking about my brother. He had passed away. And when I wrote Could Have Sworn, I was going through this weird thing where I thought I would see my brother everywhere because he was a prankster. So it was like maybe in his death, he was like pranking me, like he was going to pop up at any second. So I would always see people in Brooklyn be like, oh shit, that looks like, nah, it's not him. He's not here. And then fast forward, I wrote 133rd Psalm talking about, again, my brother who passed away, but I'm talking about how we would direct opposites, but then the second verse tells you how close we were as brothers. So
yeah. Well, dude, after I heard that song, bro, I was texting all my brothers like, I love you, man. I love you.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. I feel that.
Well, that brings me to a question. Take me a little bit more into like how your family background and your experiences may have influenced just your love for hip hop itself. And kind of like where my background to that story a little bit is just that a lot of artists, we have villain stories, we have superhero backstories, so to speak, that like caused us to pour into that. Can you take me into how that's impacted your artistry and life?
Yes. So on the music side, my mother was a singer-songwriter. She and her and my uncle had it's almost like a folk rock band. Sometimes they would have Christian themes. And so musically, aside from the way my father was with me, watching my mother go to band practice, with my uncle and drummers and bass players and guitar players and them writing lyrics, that, I had a front row seat to watching a band put together music and good music as well. I don't have any my uncle had passed away, so I don't have any copies. I just remember it. I remember it being very hooky and very catchy, which helped me when I started writing for Stillwell.
Oh, sure.
And my father, although he serves as a villain in a lot of my songs because he was a crazy motherfucker, he, for some reason, he can't explain it. No one can explain it. From the minute I could walk, he always pushed me to entertain people. He's not an entertainer. He played trumpet, but he had a lot of stage fright. So he has no real stage experience. Like he's terrified of it. And so he would have these weed parties and like have me 4 years old, 5 years old. He had like a little microphone that he bought at Radio Shack, for those that remember Radio Shack.
Yeah.
And he would give me the mic and he'd make me like sing like James Brown or Beatles songs for the guests. They were all high and drunk. So they would tripping, like watching this little kid like just get into character. And so before my father like really like lost his way, he was like kind of molding me as an entertainer, but that wasn't even his intention. He just, I don't know, we both can't explain it. Like he would watch certain entertainers, like I remember when Saturday Night Live was a hot thing and he'd stay up and watch whatever band was going to perform. And he'd make me watch the bands, forget the comedians. He'd tell me like, look at the way they deliver the lyrics. Look at their eyes, look at their manner. That's how he was educated. So as a little kid, I'm sitting there and I'm watching it and he doesn't even realize I'm really listening to what he's telling me to watch. And I'm learning these mannerisms. So by the time I hit the stage for the first time, I felt like somewhat of someone that had trained already to get on stage. Like there wasn't much fright. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. So that's how the dynamic of my parents molded me. And then obviously, if you listen to Vengeance Is Mine and Between Heaven and Hell and other songs, the home life was chaotic. So what it served there was it just gave me a whole lot of shit to write about, both in rock and in hip hop, because my father was a very extreme, impulsive character. I describe him to a lot of people like he would be someone that you would see in a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like one of those guys, you know what I mean? So being around that just exposed me to the streets quicker because he was a street guy. They didn't really pay attention if I got on a train at night. I was a young kid and getting myself into trouble and things of that nature. So the streets of Brooklyn, my father's chaos, my parents' love for music. And when it comes to heavy music, rock music, my cousin Peter, who I named the Stillwell mascot after, he was the first person to introduce me to Black Sabbath. So paid homage to him, because that was the first time I ever heard anything like that. Before, it was always my parents playing Rolling Stones or Beatles and, you know, that stuff. But the injection of Black Sabbath is just like, what? Like, I remember being like, what is this? And how do I become a part of it? You know?
I love your cross genre enthusiasm. And like you listed off several artists. I think you said Kurt Cobain and several others that would have influenced you. What non-rap artists were big influences? Not just artists you like, but which ones like impacted you in a way that it influenced the way you wrote lyrics?
Depeche Mode, Martin L. Gore, his lyrical ability to me. I have this joke that I have with Wav from P.O.D. where wherever I see him, I go, Martin L. Gore is a lyrical genius, and we laugh. But I just strongly believe that when you get past the spectacle of Depeche Mode and you really pay attention to what that guy is writing, it's pretty deep. You know, he takes on topics of religion and love and the world, but the way he's such a poet that I was really like into where he was going. And then, you know, you get into like bands like, you know, I mentioned the core bands, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Screaming Trees, Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, Oasis, Live. You know, all of these bands had a massive effect on me, and Smashing Pumpkins, because they had a beautiful darkness to them in it, and I was attracted to that. That attracted me the most. Hair metal was kind of silly to me. I enjoy hair metal, but not as much as grunge. Grunge just really spoke to me. It felt like when hip hop had that transition from Melly Mel and all of them wearing the weird Parliament suits, and then Run DMC comes with Lee suits. That's what grunge felt like to me with hair metal. Like everybody in hair metal was practically dressing like everybody from the Furious Five, right? Spandex and studs and all that crap. And then Run DMC come with the shit that you wear in the hood. And that's how I saw the grunge thing. You know, they were all wearing shit that you would just wear buying at a thrift store or at a regular clothing store. And so those bands, then I throw in like a lot of like odd bands that people wouldn't think. Devo was something that they were a spectacle, but for the first 3 albums, I felt like they just hit the nail on the head lyrically. And then me and Jonathan Davis, we have this thing where we both agree that the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack plays a massive role in our upbringing of music, because it was, it's just the way they took rock and I guess what you would consider theater music, brought it together. And it was important, not for the religious experience, just for how Andrew Lloyd Webber married rock opera, like the way he did. And so like, that's the thing that would shock most people. Like, I can sit here and practically sing you the whole album word for word. I know it perfectly. So
that's amazing.
Thank you.
And like that sort of attitude explains a lot about your music.
I'm all over the place, man. I've reached the point now where I have a deep love for most music. Some music, whether it's rap or rock, some of it kind of loses me. Some of the modern stuff kind of loses me at times. I do my best to not be as cynical or as judgmental as most people are, but I can see why the complaints are there. I can see it. I can hear it, you know? So.
Hey, Q, I'm with you. Like, I try not to be the quote unquote old head, but
it's hard sometimes.
But here's what's wild though, man. It's like my son, he's going to be 20 this year. Mm-hmm. He's the one who actually got me into System of a Down.
That's amazing.
I would listen to them, but I never really checked them.
Yeah, but they're amazing.
But he's like classically trained. He's a violinist. And so he comes from stuff from a musical aspect. And so he's like, yo. And so, dude, like I've been on, and now my daughter's in the System of a Down, and me and my son are doing like Toxicity duets every night. It's just, you know.
That's dope. You and I have something in common because my son is also classically trained. He right now he's 25. He plays 5 instruments. He was in jazz competitions, but his like your son, his knowledge of music is a massive, like I learned from him now. Like I'm learning about all these new bands like Car Seat Headrest and I forgot the other band, Pup and all of these new bands the Idols and bands that I wouldn't have caught unless he pointed out. And then he's also responsible for sitting me down and making me listen to Tyler the Creator. If he didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have paid attention. And I actually appreciate that guy. He's actually, like, his latest album to me was it's a masterpiece. I think for what he does for him, I think it's a brilliant album. So it's good to have kids that are like musically inclined and kind of have like this broad sense of what they're going to listen to, and they're not really as judgmental as us old folks would be. So it's good to have a plug.
It's crazy. I remember like P.O.D. last time P.O.D. came through here, it was 2019, and it was like the Circles tour. And so I took it was like his first concert, right? And I remember asking him after it was over, I'm like, what'd you think of the concert, dude? Because he was trying to just play the back. I'm like, no, we got to get up front because it's not the pit's not there. It's actually calm up front.
Yeah.
And like after it was over, I'm like, what'd you think, dude? And he's like, it was kind of like in between like a boxing match and a sardine can. I'm like, but then the funny thing is he got wubbed to, like, because he brought the booklet from the Satellite album.
Nice.
And so he got Wuv to sign it, but Wuv kept the pen. And to this day, he's just like, bro.
I'm going to tell Wuv when I see him, yo, man, you got that pen on you?
Well, dude, here's what's wild is, like, I don't know how I stumbled across Stillwell. I think it was the Killing Myself to Live video. But
nice story to that video.
Well, we need to get to that then. But I remember being like, hold up. They're like, there's this band with, like, it was like, I was like, with Wuv? Because I've been P.O.D. day one, right? Okay. And P.O.D. And then it would be like Q. I'm like, who is this Q? And then I'm like, hold up, that's Q Unique. And I'm like, girls were coming together, bro. I was just like running downstairs. I'm like, yo, you got to check this. My wife was like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that story, the Stillwell story is you know, a lot of the things that have happened in my career have caused me to call myself the Forrest Gump of music, because a lot of the things that happen just have me in a room where it doesn't make sense, a lot of the things. Right. And the Stillwell thing definitely mathematically doesn't add up. At the time, I was finishing up the tour cycle for Vengeance Is Mine, and I was starting to dip my toe into the water of rock way before I started talking to Fieldy. I got invited to do the Vans Warped Tour, and Crazy Legs had suggested I put a band together. So to make a long story short, I put this band together and I do the Vans Warped Tour for a second time. And the experience was mind blowing. And it's weird. Like, whatever you believe in your life, fate, the universe, God. So I finished the Vans Warped Tour with a band. And right after I finish, I get a call from Bobby from Tribal Gear, the guy who owns the clothing company Tribal Gear. And he asks me, would you record with Fieldy from Korn? And my response was just so lukewarm. I was like, yeah, sure. Because I didn't fully grasp what he was asking me. It was more like, you know, as a rapper, you always ask, yo, give me a verse. So that I kind of took it the same way. Like, oh, another verse for another song. Okay, cool. And so I flew out to California at that time, and I meet Fieldy. And the first night that we're hanging, we write Kill Myself. The chemistry was instant. I produce all the keys and the drums and all of that. He plays guitar, bass. He had just became a Christian, so as I was leaving his house, his studio, he pulls me to the side. He's like, "Yo, I really dig what you do, but could you do me a favor with this song? Please don't curse on it." Because he had just listened to Vengeance Is Mine. So I was like, I thought it was a strange request, but I was like, okay, that's cool. You know, in my head, I was like, Rakim never cursed. I think I can handle it. So I write the song. Korn ends up in New York several months later. We meet up. We play the song. He's excited. He turns to me, he goes, "What's your schedule like?" And I'm like, "I just finished my touring cycle for Vengeance Is Mine, so I'm just going to be going into writing for the next album." He's like, "You want to come on tour with Korn?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah." And that lasted for 17 years. That one question of these two people, that one calling me to get on a verse, one right next to me saying, "You want to go on tour with Korn," altered my life. It just, I thought I was going to become a member of Wu-Tang, which was never going to happen. And instead, I end up going on this life-changing experience trip with Korn. It was life-changing. It was like putting your child in rock camp class. That's what it felt like for me, because now I'm going to learn. I already tried rock at the Vans Warped Tour, but now I'm going to learn from super experts how this shit runs, from behind the scenes to putting an album together. Everything that they did for that chapter of my life, they allowed me to be a fly on the wall. So if they had a meeting with a manager, I'd be in the corner just listening. If they were in the studio, I'd be in the corner just watching. If they were shooting a music video, I'd be on the side just watching. And there were several times where they didn't have an opener, or the opener fucked up, and they would throw me on stage as Q Unique to open up for them. So the whole experience is just surreal. It doesn't make any sense. And then out of that comes Stillwell. And my first run with Stillwell is an arena tour opening up for Korn and Disturbed. So again, definitely mathematically not making any sense to me, but I'm still going with it because I'm learning this craft that I'm falling deeply in love with. And so the whole story of Stillwell is just, though my whole music career is just, because if you listen to Vengeance Is Mine, any child that comes out of a home like that, the probability of them becoming a recording artist that's going to tour around the world, very slim next to not happen. But it happened. It happened.
Yeah.
So, the whole thing is just bugged out to me still to this day.
No, I'm curious, based on a lot of the things you just said, it's like, how does spirituality, if at all, influence your music or your outlook on life?
Big time. I have my faith. I have my walk. I don't approach it like most people do. I say it respectively. It was something that I can't think of the country rap rock artist's name. The big guy. I can't think of his name.
Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll. He was being interviewed, and he was saying how American Christians got Christianity wrong, and it was something that I agreed with. I don't know what his walk is. I don't know what his faith is. I don't know nothing much about him. I know he makes good music and people love him a lot. And so that's why I'm always careful with the subject, because my beliefs and my faith are very simple. That, I guess that's the best way for me to describe it. I try not to throw it into politics. I try not to cram it down somebody's throat. I try not to chase people down the block like that. You're going to hell. I try not to do any of that stuff. I know I'm flawed. I know I'm broken. I know I got bad habits, and I know that I got a past that's crazy. So spirituality is the balance. It's the glue. It's what keeps me believing when I can't believe. Because there's a lot of times, a lot of these stories that I told y'all, there were moments where I just didn't believe it, or I didn't have enough belief to go further than. And so that's where spirituality comes in, when you get in your prayer or your meditation or wherever, and you're like, God, be with me here, because I don't see it. So it's very important. And I actually talk a lot about my tug of war in a lot of my music. In a lot of my music, I talk about, being challenged with having blind faith. Because to me, it is. As a human being, it's challenging to believe in something you can't see or someone you can't see. I find it challenging. Some people, they just go on and it's easy for them. For me, it's not. It's a tug of war at times. Yeah. And so,
well, I definitely heard some of that in the Saturday, Sunday.
Yes, that. What's crazy is that song and Come to Jesus Moment. The Come to Jesus Moment song has a crazy story because I could write a spiritual song, but I do my best to not throw Jesus's name in songs because I feel like I want to respect and I don't want to say something that would ruin anything. So it's a high level of respect. So when we wrote Come to Jesus, I had already I already laid down all the guitar work and all of that. And I already had the verses written. I kind of knew where I was going with it. I just didn't know what I was going to say on the chorus. So Fieldy comes into the studio and he's all excited, all this energy. And he's sitting there and he goes, dude, I had this dream and whatever you're going to write for the chorus, you got to put Jesus's name in it. And I'm like, oh, no. So I'm sitting there shitting because, I'm like looking at him like, I really don't want to do that. I'm not comfortable, but I'm not going to challenge him. I try not to ruin the mojo of the studio experience. So I'm like sitting there sweating, like, what am I going to do, man? This sucks. So I quietly just put my head down, and within 10 minutes, I'd look up. I had a console mic, like just to put scratch ideas down. I pick it up and I basically threw up the chorus right there on the spot. Just came out. No struggle. It just, I'm falling so broken, having to come to Jesus. It just came out. Can't even explain it. Didn't write it down. It just, and so Sunday, Monday was again the same thing where I knew that I wanted to talk about a lot of Christians that I see that they go into church on Sunday and by Monday they're already evil, so it's like I knew I wanted to say something. So when that chorus is the same thing, the chorus just came out. So that's when Rakim says something so beautiful. He says, lyrics come from a place that you can't see, you can't buy, you can't touch lyrics, you can't grab them. So he calls that God consciousness. He says it in his book. You're like this antenna to receive this from whatever you believe it's going to come from. In my case, I believe that God is transmitting words to me so that I can regurgitate and give it to you. Not all the time, because I've said some wild shit. So that's my secular, human self being me, But when those deep spiritual messages come out, I feel like there's an agreement where I'm looking at something from a certain perspective and God is like, okay, I feel you. Go ahead, say it and say it with this. And so I take it and I say it and it always comes out pretty cool, man. Like I like those two. So I'm glad that you brought up Sunday, Monday. Because I think those two songs are really special, when it comes to that subject.
Nomadic, do you have more questions for him? Because I know we need to wrap up pretty soon, but I know you had a number of questions you wanted to ask, and I don't
shoot away, man. I'm here.
I don't want to run off.
I mean, dude, I
need the important stuff.
could be here for 3 hours. Okay, well, but then you've also been a part of a couple other groups, like you had like Radimus and King's Bounty.
Yes.
Like, so were those just kind of just basically different creative?
Yes. So King's Bounty is now Soul Gun. We changed the name. Soul Gun, which was King's Bounty, is life experience. Again, I speak about faith, life experiences, and also my guitar player, Mike DeJean, who is like a New York hardcore legend. He's in the band Crown of Thorns, Breakdown. He's worked with Agnostic Front.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on and on. Cro-Mags.
Yeah.
So he's been my muse because I watch his chaotic life and I wrote a lot of songs for King's Bounty, just watching him go through the shit. And then Rodimus was my chance at trying real metal, like, because Soul Gun, Stillwell, people always, the average rock listener, they don't know how to break it down into subgenres. So they hear Stillwell and they're like, I like that metal shit you're doing. And you don't want to correct them. You're like, oh, thank you. But Stillwell isn't metal. and neither is King's Bounty or Soul Gun. Rodimus was my chance with the guitar player Daniel to do some metal. Out of all of them that I've done, Rodimus definitely proved to be the most challenging, because I feel like metal is something that takes time to develop, because you're looking at some really interesting vocal techniques with growling and vocal fries and just the aggression of it. So I'm still kind of learning when it comes to Rodimus. I still feel like I'm in kindergarten or first grade when it comes to metal. I'm a metal listener, but as a person that does it, I feel like a baby. Whereas when it comes to Stillwell, Soul Gun, and the new stuff that I'm doing with Mother Fuzz, that's more rock, alternative rock. That's my vein. I feel way more at home there, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but technically there was a Stillwell metal song.
We tried, you know, there was, and there's a good explanation for why there wasn't more. You know, when we started Stillwell, y'all could blame Fieldy for this, but he and I respect it. He was very adamant in not sounding heavy because he respected Korn, and so he didn't to do anything heavy because he felt that the audience would be like, that's just Korn with a different, which it would have never have been, but I understood and I respected it. And that's why we just went the alternative rock route, because it became more of, all right, well, how would I interpret what we're about to do? And the closest thing, like I mentioned, the closest thing that was dear to me was alternative rock, grunge rock. So I was like, all right, so we're just going to go somewhere here. I don't think we sound like any of those bands, but I think it's somewhere in that garden somewhere, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, y'all both do, and y'all do a good job of not sounding like, you know, Korn or P.O.D.
Right.
You know,
which was very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and it sounds like it's kind of just like the fun aspect, like with like, say, like Wov and Fieldy. It's not like, it's kind of like, oh, this is fun. It's not like the business, you know?
Oh. It was definitely do it yourself and very punk rock when it came to behind the scenes and how we did things. You know, I know a lot of people, you know, certain Korn fans might have looked at it like, what the hell is this? But it was three brothers that had known each other for quite some time. And we just wanted to do something that was fun to us. So there was a lot of laughter and a lot of jokes and just a lot of fun putting all of that stuff together. My favorite out of all of it was the Supernatural Miracle album. That's when I was able to pick up a guitar and kind of like put more of myself into the Stillwell situation.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to keep you all day, but I do have.
I'm good, man.
Two other questions. So y'all started doing like the remixes, like are there going to be any more of those?
No, this is what's going to happen. Good question. So after the last album, Rock the House, we decided to take a small break. And then we decided to add two new guitar players. We added Jamie Tessier, who was in the band Droid and Sunflower Dead, and Rob Cisneros, who had been in a bunch of bands himself as well. And so what that means is, moving forward, I probably won't be playing guitar on stage like I was for the last two. And it was also a conscious decision because we want to go a little more grittier, a little more heavier, but understanding, it was almost like we did those 4 albums and we listened to what the listeners liked. And now we're going after the formulas that so for instance, Street Metal is the most popular Stillwell song. So me knowing this, that means that certain songs might get that approach of like punch you in the face, really cool lyrics, good hook, and guitars that just rip and just make you want to either mosh or bang your head. And so I feel like the music is going into a more darker, heavier route, but we're conscious. Now we're really conscious of, all right, we're going to go heavier, but we're not going to, Fieldy understands, we're not going to sound like Corn. We're not going to sound like Meshuggah. We're not going to sound like Mastodon. We're going to sound like us doing what we do. And we've already recorded 4 tracks, and I love every single one of them. The only thing that's scary is that we might be changing the band name.
Yeah, I was just watching what was the Vibe Check interview.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes.
Talking about that a little bit.
That, because I think some of the members of the band feel like the Stillwell book is as far as what we wrote under the Stillwell name.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and it's a part of our lives. That's it. And we just feel like this is a new chapter with new members and a new sound. We everybody has a different opinion of it. I won't say what my opinion is because I'm not trying to spark any arguments when I get back in the studio. But I understand what they mean when they say change the name, change the approach. I'm happy with changing the approach though. Because even when you said remixes, that allowed me to change the approach individually. Like we did a dance remix, we did a metal remix, we did a reggae remix. So it allowed me to really color outside of the lines. So I never mind changing musical approach. The band name stuff I'm a little more sensitive to, but
Well, did you have one more, Nomadic?
I mean, the thing that I bug you all the time about on your Friday night IG lives is when we gonna get that freaking Sonny Q Unique?
Yo, that's dope. I just handed him. So I produced 3 tracks with me and Sonny on it, and he's taking 2 of them. From what I understand, he's putting out a solo album. So I produced 2 tracks for his solo album, and he invited me to rap on both the tracks that I produced. Dope. So it's me and him rapping, trading bars, and they came out really cool, man. They're more on, one of them is like a reggae hip hop fusion, that old school Brooklyn vibe type shit, dance hall, and the other one is straight up hip hop. And I'm excited, man. We've been going. I already handed in one of the mixes. I got to mix the other one. And then I got a song actually about faith that me and Sonny did that I'm going to put on my album. I'll be on his album. So hopefully I think the 2 songs that I produced for Sonny should be out sometime in the summer, but let's see.
That's all right.
That's the deal with that.
And on that note, why don't you plug anything else you want to plug, any other projects or socials or websites, whatever you want to say?
Definitely. So if you want to see everything that I do as far as hip hop is concerned, just hit up qunique.com, Q-UNIQUE. It has all my socials on it. It's always updated. So it's got all the music videos, all the podcast style videos where I'm telling stories and giving you either the full length stories or the quick 1-minute shorts and reels. That all of that stuff is on there, all the merch, everything. And if you need to find me on Instagram or TikTok, all the tabs are there. So qunique.com for that. Nice. And as far as rock is concerned, Soul Gun has its own Instagram page. So if you go to on my Instagram page, if you go to Mr_Q_unique, I don't know why I made it that terrible, but that's what but it's Mr_Q_unique. And on my bio page, it gives you the ats to all the different bands I'm in. So Soul Gun's on there, and Mother Fuzz, Stillwell, and Rodimus are also on there, and the Arsonists are on there as well. So that's all of my Instagram page. And Mother Fuzz, by the way, is my solo rock stuff. And it's not like I'm in pursuit of a solo rock career. It allows me to really paint a song in any way, shape, or form. And it also allows me to collaborate with different rock artists that I've met through the years. So that's what Mother Fuzz is for me. It's just giving me the space to really go in different directions. I already released 2 songs where one of them is an original song called Best Friends. And the other one I covered Suicidal Tendencies, Subliminal.
So
my favorite bands right there.
Well, for the listener, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening.
Give them a 5-star rating, son.
You just got to go right for it, all the way to the top, because that is the caliber of this show.
Yes, sir.
No, but on a serious note, we're at Bruised Beards on Instagram, and we're bruisedbeards.com, where you can find like all the archives if you want to find a particular show, because we've had a lot of great rappers and non-rappers on the show. In other things, my crew, Royal Ruckus, has our Mr. Rogers series coming out. So Mr. Rogers of the rapgame.com will take you there, and we'll be dropping some new mixes very, very soon. Anything you want to plug, Nomadic?
Nah, man. Just blessed to be here, and I'm just good day.
Awesome. We got to spring one more quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Put you on the spot for this. If someone said just greatest rap song of all time, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Eric B for president.
All right. That's a good one. That's a good one. And definitive. I like that, because sometimes as soon as people hear that, they say 50 different things. You know,
yeah.
You knew in your heart.
Yes. I mean, and what's just a side note, what people don't even realize, I think he was 17 years old when he wrote that,
Holy smokes.
which is insane when you think about it.
Yeah. Ill lyricism, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate hearing your story.
Thank you, guys. And let's do this again, man. I'm around.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, man.